Hello and welcome to the Usability Podcast, helping you to create better designs and better experiences for your users every single week. I'm Dr. Chris Parker, and today we are talking about usability testing, and more to the point, how do you conduct usability testing? In previous episodes, we talked about think aloud process, about performance, about satisfaction, all these great tests, but if you're not sure how to conduct great usability testing, it's very difficult to bring this into any reality and to really embody this in your work. So today we're going to go into a deep dive of just how you conduct work. Now, I'm a researcher and lecturer at Loughborough University, School of Design and Creative Arts, and I teach on usability. I teach on user experience and just creating great artifacts with students and with people out there in the world for my research. So I'm coming from a very scientific point of view, in that, I'll link in the description to this podcast all my academic work. So everything I talk about today is what I use to get out there, understand people, generate great designs, great insights, and lead this into impacting the design community out there. So what is usability testing? We're going to take a quick recap on this. So you are designers and you've got your concept out there. It might be in the very early stages, in a very lo-fi wireframe. It might already be out there and you're looking to increase the fidelity of your work through an agile design process. So usability testing is about putting what you've got in front of people, finding how they use it, how they find their reactions are, learning from that and using those insights to drive your design forward. Now, obviously, if you're in the initial stages of doing your design, be it lo-fi, paper prototypes, usability isn't as important because you're still trying to get that big picture together. At the same time, if there's a feature that you are really proud of and you think this is going to be great for our users and people don't understand it, it could be the words aren't right, or the logic of the navigation structure is not very good, or whatever it is, then you want to identify that straight away. So it does come in, but it really has its strength. Usability testing has a great strength when you're in these hi-fi prototypes or live products. That's when you get the best data because that's real. It's your product is already fully fleshed out. It's got all the bits there. So everything that can and will affect usability is already in place. So thing to bear in mind when going forward. Now, if you are a professional web designer or professional designer, you really need this opportunity to get feedback. There's so many products out there where the developers are going, hey, I can use this. I find this simple. I can't think of any other way to do it simpler. So yeah, this is great. They talk to their colleagues and they go, yeah, what do you think? And everyone goes, yes, because we all like to say yes and be kind. But ultimately, we need to get the real users involved. We need to learn from the people who are actually having this new experience. Ideally, people who are brand new to the product or service. Now, firstly, before you do anything, you got to think about, what am I trying to do? What are my aims? If you don't know what you're trying to achieve, you never will achieve it. So you got to think, can I understand why people are using my website? Am I understanding if they can complete a set number of tasks that I know are key to my business? Can we tell if the activities are difficult? Can we tell people get lost? Can we tell if things make sense? Does the way that we are writing on the writing the content, is that making people feeling trust or feeling insecure? And generally, just what do they like about a website or dislike? These are some very common themes in testing, and that you really need to decide that. So what's your intent? Then you can go forward and go, all right, so that's what we want to get. That's our aim. So how do we understand that? So we need to choose some measures. So is it task success? Is it lostness? Is it SUS scales we spoke about on a previous podcast? Is the time taken on the website important? Now, maybe we're just trying to have an improved usability and our company says, okay, we're going to use time on task completion, SUS, maybe just think aloud, any other metrics you like, any qualitative or quantitative measures. And every time we push a product live, this could be every month, every 6 months, every year. Every time we push live, we're going to measure these and see how it's changed over time. So we're going to be comparing against the two. So hopefully we can see all these metrics are improving over time. If you're not too sure about the metrics, such as performance ones, satisfaction ones, go back over the podcast. We've got lots of episodes already there. And if you're listening on YouTube, please comment below and tell me what metric you'd like to know about to reach your goal. Anyway, decide on what you're going to record to achieve your aim. Now, this is absolutely crucial. There's no point doing something if it's not relative to the aim you want to achieve. So rating scales really are effective. The kind of thing like satisfying users, SUS, etc. Anyway, so once we've chosen what we're trying to achieve, we go, right, we're going to choose our subjects. So you make sure that you are pulling from a group of people who are your users and represent your users. So don't just go for people in the office or people that you just pulled off the street if they aren't likely to use your product. Because as we all know, not all kinds of people are the same. We get like computer scientists are famously fantastic at the details and seeing the minute infinite in everything we're doing and think in a very logical way. And artists don't necessarily think in that way. So we have these cognitive biases between our groups. Look at who your customers are. Look at the age range. Look at their lifestyles. Target those people. Think about how many people you need. So if you're doing a qualitative insight, at least 6, minimum 6 to really understand the issues. Ideally 15. If you're doing a quantitative investigation, so you're doing some stats, are you going to do a t-test between two groups, then you've really got to think about getting large samples. Generally speaking, a t-test, we're looking at about 35 people, but you need to calculate your sample size. I found the most effective way to calculate my sample size for a statistical test is some software called G*Power. I've spoken about it before. I've blogged about it on my YouTube channel, Design E-Learning Tutorials. You can find lots of information online about G*Power. That is the best way to guide through your sample size. Moving on, I'll probably make another podcast about this in the future about sample size. Let me know. So we've chosen our sample. We've got a way to collect them. That could be walking on the streets, could be using mailing lists, could be using a third party, it could be speaking to colleagues, speaking to networks. You've really got to get out there and find ways. There will be a podcast in this phase shortly about how you get hold of people. That's something to think about. Then you've got your aim, you've got your tests that you need to measure, you've got a sample. Then you've got to think, well, how do we engage these people? So you need to give them a scenario, you've got to give them a task. Say, right, this task is what you're doing now. You're going to work through these steps on our website or on our app or on our service, whatever it is. You'll work through these things. And as you work through, we will collect this data about you. Now, that task could be something very simple, such as buying a product. It could be paying a bill. It could be contacting a client. It could be anything. But it must be something which is very common to the experience of your sample. So there's not this massive learning curve if what you're talking about isn't brand new. You also want to ideally get people who are kind of new to your service and your product, although not new to the entire field. So that's the kind of person I tend to target a lot. But it really depends what you're trying to find out. If you're doing something groundbreaking, maybe that's very difficult. So how do you write a task? How do you give a task to the person? So you need to think about, rather than saying instructions, saying do this, do that, you want to give them a scenario. Scenario A has occurred and you need to ring this company urgently. So you need to find the telephone number. That's a much better way of getting someone to do actions on your website or app than just saying find the contact section. Because when you start saying tasks like find the contact section, you tend to use the words you use on your product. So people go, contact. I will look for contact, or maybe use the find function on the browser to search for contact. When you say find telephone number for this problem, people think differently. Now, they might think of, It's it's a water problem. So do I go to the water services section and look for there rather than just general contact? This makes it more real and starts to plug into the way that your users think. And that's a really important thing. Your user testing must focus on the way your users think. So one example scenario is your parents are arriving in London and want to meet you there. They would like you to find a restaurant for tomorrow evening for the three of you to have dinner. So you want to book a hotel for them for 2 nights and the meal. Okay, so we have a website called booking.com. Now we know that all the features to achieve this task are there. It's now up to you as the user to really get in and use the features, use the site to achieve the task. Another one would be your parents would like to go on a trip on the River Thames, so find a riverboat trip and book it for them for tomorrow. Whatever. These are realistic things and they mirror the way people think. So you got your scenario. You've written that out and you think, yeah, this is good. So you need to plan how you're going to collect the data. Part of that is, how are you going to take notes? How are you going to record audio? How are you going to record screens? Because think about it. The best way to record something is not in a lab. Now, as UX designers, as UX academic, we love labs. We build labs with two-way glass and we fill it with loads of kit and it's got comfy sofas, coffee machines. Oh, wow, it's great. But nobody works that way. We search for holidays whilst lying in bed. We have great ideas, whilst in the bathroom. We search for products whilst on the bus or lunch breaks. The environment really affects how we are. Now, the amount of things we can consider, our cognitive process, how we think and feel, is going to be different when we're relaxing on a sofa at the weekend compared to on a crowded bus. It's raining outside, it's noisy, we're going home after a long day at work. Our minds are working different. Stress is affecting us. Maybe there's people poring over our shoulders and looking at our phones. We might not want people to see everything. So what you really want is to have people in as natural environment as possible and the researcher to be as unobtrusive as possible. Now, there's a million ways you can do this, but generally, if you're using a laptop or a phone, think about that. Maybe go out of your lab into a coffee shop and try and set up all your gear to be portable. So one example of this is Marvel. They've launched a new product where you upload your hi-fi prototype onto their website. It plugs into Sketch and all the other great prototyping software. Then you can share a link with your user. Wherever the user is, they can click on that and they see your prototype. They interact with it. First off, the website gives them the scenario, gives them the task, and then it goes into the prototype. So they know what they're doing, they know what they're trying to achieve. And they work through the prototype, get to the end, a little message comes up saying, well done, congratulations. So that could be somewhere on the other side of the world. So how do we collect data with that? The phone's camera is watching their face the entire time. The microphone's recording what they're saying. The app is recording where they're touching, where they're scrolling, all the inputs. So from this, you can get a lot of data. So your think aloud stuff, your lostness, you can't give them a survey at the moment, but I'm sure there are platforms out there that can administer a survey before and after to get that extra data. So that's a great way to do that. Another way is using software called Camtasia, or any screen capture software that captures the computer's screen and will capture the voice and capture the face of the person as they're working. So you may use a website prototype on your laptop, and this laptop's in the coffee shop. The researcher or designer can set the person up and say, right, I'll see you in 5 minutes, bye. And it just records it as going. And then afterwards, they just press stop, save it, and walk away. Now, is this appropriate? It all comes down to what your aims are, what your tests are. But really think through, how will you collect this? How will you get the screens? How will you do that? And then once you've got your data, think, how am I going to analyze this? Do I need to employ someone to transcribe it for me? Do I need to learn anything about analyzing data? How will I get everything onto a big spreadsheet? Am I collecting my surveys by paper and uploading them onto a spreadsheet somewhere? Am I using online survey? There's a lot of options out there. If you think about this before you do it, then you'll get to the point where when you collect the data, it'll be easy to work with and effective. So that's very important. Now, we've got this planned. We've got everything sorted. How do we conduct the actual usability testing? We have to greet the participant as they come here and put them at ease, make them feel relaxed. Some people are very nervous. We must give them very clear instructions on what usability testing is about, how to get there, what's going to happen before things come along. You're going to give them an ethical consent form and make sure it's written in plain English. You might have a great vocabulary, doesn't matter. Use very simple words. If an 11-year-old can understand it, you're doing well. It's also good to make a checklist of things to work through during the usability test. So arrive, greet the person, give them this form, give them the instructions, walk through, etc. That way you can make sure that the test is the same for everyone. Everyone gets the same information in the same order, and you can be confident that your test is valid. At the beginning of the test, you want to get the person familiar with the environment. So maybe you show them the prototype beforehand, maybe get them relaxed, make sure they are going, yeah, this is really good. You might want to ask for, what their initial thoughts are. Hey guys, what do you think might happen? What's happened before? And make sure that anything which is has to be learned before, they are very easy they've learned. Then you've got to present your task. Now, it's very easy to give your tasks all at once and go, hey guys, this is everything we're doing, but that's not very appropriate. It's much better to say, here's one task. I want you to do this. Give them the scenario. Give them the scenario, get them to work through it. Collect all your metrics required at the same time. So if you need to observe them and count keystrokes, make sure you're doing that. If you need to record audio, make sure you're doing that. If you've got to record video screens, do that. Collect everything at once. Maybe not analyze it at once, but collect everything at once. Get to the end, press save, give them the second scenario, then move on. So it really is a simple, clear process. You're both getting what you need. Now, as a designer, you're really working on the product as your baby. You've put your heart and soul into it. And quite often the users doing the testing aren't treating it in the way that you want them to behave. And it's very easy to go, no, don't do that. Press this instead. Right. That's not helpful. As a tester, as a researcher, as a designer, you need to stay quiet during the test. You need to give them encouragement when needed. So if you want them to do think aloud where they're talking as they're going, if you notice they're not doing that, go, okay, you're doing great. I would really appreciate it if you can just tell me your thoughts as you go, what you're thinking, feeling and doing. There's no wrong answers, and we actually really value all the negative feedback. Really encourage them to give negative stuff, because when you are the authority person running the test, people are wanting to tell you what you want to know. They want to encourage you. So really say, yeah, we love the bad stuff. No, we love the things when you tell us things I hate, because we will design it out and we'll fix it. So really be brutal. Obviously say it in a really friendly way. And you need to make sure that you've got a lot of clarity. You don't want to start biasing users towards certain actions or discouraging anything. Just stay as neutral as you can. Once you've run a few sessions, this will become very easy, very natural, and you're just sort of very happy. If things go wrong, if there's some, one bit of equipment not working, don't worry. Just cancel it, move on. You can always do it again later. It's not worth ruining everything if one thing goes wrong. So after the usability test is complete, you'll have gathered as much information as possible. And you want to then go, right, now you guys have used it, could you tell me what are your overall impressions of this? What's bad, what's good? And just try and get a bit of a qualitative bit of feedback from them. Now, again, this ties into what you're trying to find out. What's your aim? If your aim is purely statistical, this isn't so useful, but generally, that's a really good thing to help drive the design process with feedback. Give them whatever survey or form that you decided you're measuring. SUS is my favorite. I really love it because it's very effective. It's a great time to go and do that. So you say goodbye, everything's done. You go on and collected all your data, be it 15 qualitative interviews, maybe 100 quantitative analysis, whatever it is. You've now got to analyze your results. So you've really got to set time aside to work through as a very serious, logical work. Now, at the start, when you're thinking of aims, you're thinking about what you're trying to achieve, that can be quite a creative process where you're thinking, the sky's the limit, let's just do everything. And things can change right up to the moment of you actually doing the work. Once you've done it, you need to be very precise, very measured, very critical of what you're doing. So if you're doing thematic analysis, make sure it's the same person analyzing all the data and hopefully writing down why they're doing what they're doing so that every bit of data, every transcript is being analyzed in the same way. You're going to be identifying common behaviors, common issues. You're going to be calculating metrics such as SUS or lostness. You're going to be combining subjective ratings. You're going to be summarizing whole areas. You really are working as a scientist at this point. So those of you watching YouTube, if you've got any comments, I'd really love to hear you. Your comments about just about what you'd like to know about this. I'd love to hear about, do you want to know about how to combine stuff? I'd love to hear about how you summarize data. So let me know and I'll include it in a future podcast. So once you collect this, it's time to talk to your boss, talk to your manager. Now you might have tables, you might have stats, you might have numbers. You've got to communicate it effectively. The best way are visuals. A visual way of communicating something. There's a bar chart, This time, so design A had a task time of whatever it is. Design B had a task time of that. Great, we can see it. Look at infographics online. Look at how you understand infographics, how people use them to communicate to the public. That's a great way to suggest how to report things. And also, when you're writing your report, you got to tell a story. What is the story? It's an opening. The opening tells you the characters, tells you who's involved, who's affected. The challenge tells you what you're trying to achieve. We've got these problems that we're trying to solve, these things we want to have insights from. Very similar to the aims. You have methods saying, okay, this is who we sampled. This is how we sampled them. This is how we collect the data. And this is how we analyze the data. Make it clear. Then give the results. And people don't care about tables. No, people don't care about long lists of tables. They care about what's the answer. And a visual that gives you the answer is the best way to communicate to people. Very rarely do bosses care about the minute details. Then you're going to go, right, you have a discussion section. Now, what's the discussion? It's saying, right, we've got all the different results. We've got all different satisfaction. We've got all different performance. We've got all different heuristics and think aloud. Our discussion is saying, right, what actually are the problems? Do all our tests converge on one part of the website being really bad that we must redesign? If so, okay, so what's the problem? Which tests tell us that this is a problem? And why is this a problem? What's the impact of this? Now, you might have some parts of your design that have really poor usability, but don't really affect the top tasks, the kind of things that people really care about, and doesn't really affect the business goals. So that's not a problem, but maybe it really does. So keep going on with that. So you're really are discussing, drawing around. Then you want to have a conclusion which says, hey, let's just summarize everything, draw everything to a close. What did we try? And you can start by reminding people what we went out to find. And then say, right, what were the key answers? If there's 2 or 3, maybe even 5 things that really stuck out from the discussion, from analyzing the results, what are they? What are those things that we really learned? How has the website improved? How's it got worse? How are things different? How do you compare competitors? Whatever you set out to do, this is where you tell people. Now, quite commonly, people will go straight to the conclusion and say, right, what do you find? What's the story? Now, don't expect your readers or executives or anyone to go back over the report. They don't care. Give them the answer. If you've not said the conclusion, you've not said it. You might want to talk about limitations. of your study and what you could do in the future. But remember, don't just say, hey, we found all this stuff out, we found people love this, people hate this, but ultimately our sample's too small, so who cares if it's true? Don't do that. Now, firstly, you should be choosing the right sample and right practice to really find out that it's true in the first place. So don't undermine yourself. Now, what you might say is, we sampled this group of users who are our primary users. It would be great to know what these other group feel. If we know what they feel, we can see if this approach is true for everyone who uses our product, or if we'd have to design a second product just for them. You're using limitations as an opportunity for further research. So that is pretty much it. That's going through the whole user testing process, from deciding what you're doing, why, thinking of scenarios, thinking of tests, thinking of how you collect data, running a test, analyzing it, drawing it, and finally producing a report in a nutshell. Now, we're going to have other podcasts coming up going into loads of detail on each of those individual pieces over time comes, but I hope that if you can take this process and this philosophy on how you approach user testing and apply it to your work, you're going to get far better user testing. You can have far greater confidence in what you're doing, and you're going to be talking about it to other people in a much stronger way. So if you found this podcast useful, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes. Remember, we are on YouTube at Design eLearning Tutorials, or you can talk to me on Twitter at UserGenDesign. I've been Dr. Chris Parker. Thank you very much.